I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Now, here's a story that's gone so underreported that Donald Trump literally flew into Florida right before Hurricane Ian so he could avoid his deposition in a case that you probably have no clue that's even going on, because Donald Trump is being sued so much for his criminality and his fraud and his election interference and everything that you sometimes forget which lawsuits are which and where they're all being filed. But in 2018, a class action lawsuit was filed against Donald Trump and his adult children that alleged that he used the reality TV show, The Celebrity Apprentice, and other promotional events to try to rake in money for endorsements of a multi-level marketing scheme and other scam businesses. So this lawsuit was filed in 2018. Donald Trump tries to delay, and his deposition is actually set for last week, and he obviously says he wants to do the deposition in Mar-a-Lago. Well, Hurricane Ian is arriving at our shores, a devastating hurricane, and the lawyers for the plaintiffs, the class that has been injured, says, hey, this hurricane's happening. Shouldn't we do the deposition in Bedminster or someplace in New York? Let's do it in a location that we will be safe at. Well, because the deadline to depose Donald Trump in that case was set to expire on Friday, and this is because Donald Trump waited until the very end and he wouldn't be deposed until the final week before the deadline, and this is what he does. He delays and delays and delays. Donald Trump's lawyers basically said, no, we're going to Mar-a-Lago, we're going to Florida. Despite the hurricane, you can meet us out there and we can do the deposition during the hurricane. To which the plaintiff's lawyers stated, and they wrote this letter to the judge on Tuesday, how perplexed they were that Donald Trump would say, you are required to take my deposition during the hurricane itself, and while there are hurricane conditions here, and placing not just the lawyers at peril, but all of the staff, right? At a deposition, you have videographers, you have court reporters, you have other assistants and staff that's there. And the plaintiff's lawyer said, look, we're not going to be putting all these people's lives at risk to do this deposition. And Donald Trump was like, well, then you waived your right to take my deposition. Too bad, so sad. I'm not being deposed in this case. So the plaintiff's lawyers had to write a letter brief to the judge. They wrote one to the magistrate, and they told the magistrate, look, this is ridiculous. He wants us to take a deposition during a hurricane. We're not going to take the deposition during a hurricane. Can we get a slight extension of time to take his deposition? And Donald Trump was like to the magistrate, sorry, they blew their deadline. I'm not going to be deposed. And here you have these lawyers from New York who are sitting comfortably in New York offices while I have to endure this hurricane that I flew out to try to avoid my deposition. And the magistrate judge, the federal magistrate judge, because they oversee discovery matters, was like, we're going to extend the deadline of the deposition to October 31st. So plaintiff, you can take Donald Trump's deposition. We're not going to force you to have to take his deposition in Hurricane Ian. That is dangerous, and we're not okay with that as a federal judiciary system. You have 30 days more to take his deposition and set and schedule it then. So Donald Trump's attempt to stop his deposition from being taken in this class action based on the fraudulent conduct alleged in engaging in a multi-level marketing scheme around the Celebrity Apprentice with his kids, that deposition is going to go forward. But you just get a sense here of all of the games Donald Trump plays in these litigations, which federal courts, you can do that a number of times, but eventually, if you're not named Judge Eileen Cannon, who does whatever Donald Trump wants, federal judges see through it. They're not going to countenance that type of game playing, but you can delay and drag your feet through the system if you have expensive lawyers and you want to delay, like you can delay a certain amount of times, but eventually the judge is going to say, all right, you've got to be deposed. But even look at this. That case was filed in 2018. It's 2022 and Donald Trump still hadn't been deposed in that case. And then as he delayed it, he tried to find some excuse. In this case, he flew down during a hurricane to not be deposed. He flew into a hurricane to hide in Mar-a-Lago, to try to avoid a deposition, to argue to the federal judge, the magistrate judge in Manhattan, that the plaintiffs waived their right to take his deposition. And that was rejected. The court said, no, you're going to be deposed. Take his deposition in the next 30 days. So basically, Donald Trump flew into Hurricane Ian to avoid a deposition, which he's still going to have to sit for that deposition. It's like remember when Donald Trump looked up at the sun during the eclipse? He flew into a hurricane to avoid a deposition. Now he's ordered to take the deposition. I think more media needs to report on that, okay? That's why I'm glad that we at the MeidasTouch network can report on things like that, because I bet you didn't even know about that lawsuit, or no one's even talking about that lawsuit, right? There's just so many lawsuits. The media is just given up on even talking about it. But in any event, we won't do that here. Hit the subscribe button right now if you enjoy independent media content like this. Also, we're on our way to 1 million subs thanks to your support. So hit the subscribe button there as we head to 1 million. Now, if you want to help grow this independent media channel, here's what you can do. Go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. We're not funded by any outside investors. So I always get asked by everyone who watches the videos, I want to help grow this. How can I do? What can I do from my living room or my office or my home to support the growth of this network? We need more of this. Here's what you do. Go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch, join one of the membership tiers. You'll get a number of exclusive benefits depending on which tier you join, and you'll help grow this network so we don't have any outside investors. Help grow this thing. I'd appreciate that. For now, I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. I'll see you next time.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.